February the 10th, 2022. This is Brent Rains for Alternate Perceptions Online Magazine, doing yet another interview with Dr. Gregory Little, from psychology to Indian Mounds. I think we're still on part 7, segment 2. However you want to swing it.
You can, yeah, let's call it part 8. Just keep number them out. No use subsectioning things.
All righty. So
all right.
We are going to discuss synchronicity, which Dr. Carl Jung made quite popular. And I kind of think he got the idea a little from Dr. J.B. Ryan in parapsychology at Duke University. You know, he did the card things and stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, synchronicity, meaningful coincidence.
All right. So do you want to, you just defined it. You want to define it again?
Oh, okay.
You just defined it. You said it just a minute ago.
Yeah, meaningful coincidence.
Yeah.
As opposed to just personal, regular coincidences. Then there's the one that often is kind of leads to kind of high strange connections, wondering there's no apparent causal connection, and yet it happens, and it happens in a meaningful context. I've had a pretty good number of experiences over the years as I look back myself with things that, it makes me think of a guy out in Little Rock, Arkansas. He created an organization called ESP Research Associates, Harold Sherman. And I've got about 6 or 7 of his books lined up on the shelf in the other room. And he was quite the psychic researcher and experiencer himself. And he used to give instructions. He said, like attracts like in the realm of mind, and how important our intentions are at achieving goals and such, and making things happen. And that your mental powers have a certain force more than,
Man, Harold Sherman. Now there is a name I haven't heard in a long time. I became acquainted with that man in Fate magazine. You remember he used to have advertisements in every issue of Fate magazine. You're correct about virtually all of that, except one thing. Jung believed, or Jung stated in his writings, that he got the idea for synchronicity in discussions, believe it or not, with Albert Einstein. He wrote a monograph on it in 1952, and it was entitled Synchronicity and a Causal Connecting Principle. And actually, that was around the time that, well, by then he had already totally split from Freud, but he was truly a disciple of Freud in the very early days. Carl Jung. And he and Freud had their split over psychic phenomena. Freud did not believe in psychic phenomena, and Jung did. In fact, Jung has an MD degree. He had an MD. He's called a psychologist because psychiatry didn't exist at that time. So, but he specialized in mental disorders. So back then they called them all psychologists. So Jung, in a discussion that he had with Freud, and this was really the last thing that happened, Jung had completed a dissertation. Now, a dissertation, which is your final written project for like a PhD or an EDD or whatever doctorate you're going to get. Most of them have a dissertation, and you write up this big thing. And Jung did his on a trance channeler. It was on psychic phenomena. And Freud didn't like that. And they got into an argument in Freud's office. And Jung literally said, if you don't believe it, there's going to be a loud bang coming from a bookshelf behind us. And Freud looked at him and said, no, I don't believe in that. Bam, there was this loud bang from the bookshelf. Have you ever heard that story? True story. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. So synchronicity. Let's talk about an example that Jung gave. It's a really interesting example. Jung had seen this young female patient for some years. And what he used to do, most of Jungian analysis always, at least each session, you always analyze dreams, and you're looking for the symbols and symbology of dreams to hopefully put a person's life into perspective. Well, this patient came in for a session and told Jung about a dream that she had had where she was handed a scarab. Now, a scarab is a beetle. It's a really interesting design on jewelry. And it was like an Egyptian scarab that was handed to her in the dream. It was beautiful and golden and all that. And the scarab is the Egyptian symbol of rebirth. So she was telling this to Jung. Jung found it very important at this exact stage of her therapy. And both he and his patient were in his office, and he heard this tapping sound, this little tapping sound, sort of like that. And it was at a window. And they kept talking, and this tap, 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 tapping sound kept happening on a window. Jung got up out of his chair, walked over to the window, and saw there was something banging into the window. And he opened it up, and in flew an insect, and he caught it with his hand. I mean, it just amazing. And he opened it up, his hand up, and it was a scarab beetle. It was an actual scarab beetle, a living one that had hit the window at the exact time they were discussing it. So that is a meaningful coincidence. And let me explain what I mean by coincidence. I would ask you, when they were discussing this scarab, where the woman had the dream, did that cause the beetle to come to the window and try and get in? No, not as far as we know. There's nothing in science that would say that a discussion going on in a room, that outside in nature a beetle might hear it and go, oh, they're talking about me, and come and tap it on the window to get in. No. So their discussion didn't cause the beetle to come to the window. The other piece is this. Did the beetle coming to the window cause their discussion? The answer is no. These both occurred at the exact time and place, and they were noticed. And what connects those two is the meaning between them. And the meaning happens to come from the fact that that's what they were discussing at the exact moment the beetle came. Now, Jung applied this to the UFO field, and I know I've already talked about this. Back in the 1940s, everybody was in this, we were in the Cold War. The Cold War started right after World War II. And nuclear proliferation was going on. People were truly afraid, and reasonably so, of nuclear war occurring. We really didn't know how bad it would be at the time if it had occurred. And at that exact time, people started reporting that they were seeing these round objects in the sky. And then people started reporting what we today call contactee experiences, where a UFO lands, some beings walk out, and they literally hand or give messages to the witnesses or recipients of these events. And inevitably, in the 1940s and 50s, late 40s and early 50s, the contactees all had the same basic story, and that is humanity is close to destroying itself. You've got nuclear weapons. We don't want you to have nuclear weapons. It's dangerous. So Jung saw that as a coincidence. The things seen in the sky occurred at that exact time that we were afraid of being destroyed. So we were looking for salvation, and the round circular objects in the sky appeared to be salvation from space somehow. That is the basic concept of synchronicity and how Jung applied it. Now, I believe one other thing. Okay, Jung, we talk about coincidences as if they're just random, and they're not. Everything is cause and effect. Everything that occurred to me today could be looked at as a coincidence, no matter what it is. It could be a coincidence of two things or three things or four things all coming together in one time and one place, all happening simultaneously. But most of those coincidences don't register. They don't mean anything to me. They don't mean a thing. They're just the random events of the day. The only ones that matter are significant or meaningful coincidences, synchronicity. And what Jung believed is that we are normally unaware of all the connections between things and synchronistic events. We're normally unaware of it. But under some state of hyper-awareness, some state of some mental state, we can become aware of the connections that are always there, always around us. So if you look at it this way, the entire universe has some underlying connection of energy. Everything is connected in it. And instead of talking about the whole universe and having it all, let's just take it to Earth. Earth is part of the whole thing. So the whole Earth has this interconnected energy. We are a part of that. We don't normally. We go about living our day-to-day lives. We do all the habits and things that we do. Things happen all the time around us. We don't pay attention to most of it. We're pretty much in our own perceptual sphere, our own perceptual area, and we don't really notice those things. But under some circumstances, say you are mentally stressed, you might notice some things. So my way of thinking about it and talking about it is that synchronicity truly is a heightened awareness of the connections that are always there. We just don't normally see them. So anyway, that's synchronicity. It's a pretty deep concept, but again, the events that are occurring in the real world are connected by the meaning. We notice them, and they have real relevance and meaning in that moment. That is synchronicity.
And it sounds like something that relates to that really quirky, wild, complex, hard to follow concept that people are talking about, the quantum physics, quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
Jung was actually corresponding, besides with Albert Einstein, an early quantum physicist. I don't remember his name.
Bohm, I think it was. Wasn't it Bohm?
Maybe.
Bohm,
Sure.
B-O-H-M?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think he was, I think that came out in that book he wrote on flying saucers.
Yeah.
But
Well, he talked about synchronicity in that book, and he had a pretty long quote in there. I'll read a quote out of his book real quick. I think we have 2 minutes left, 2.5 minutes. One of the things he said in his 1959 book, Flying Saucers, here's an exact quote. The present world situation is calculated as never before to arouse expectations of a redeeming supernatural event. So he was looking at society and he said people are really primed for a supernatural event. They're really primed for something to occur. So anyway, that is what Jung believed about it. I had another quote here where he talked about synchronicity there, but I've already explained it, and I don't think it's worth going into. But he saw those discs, the round discs, as symbolizing a mandala, the symbol of the whole, or the symbol of salvation. And he believed people were projecting meaning onto that. But he didn't know what the mandala was. He didn't know what people were seeing. And he said that many times, something seen, one doesn't know what. He simply just didn't know. And I think I can't say I know either. I know it's energy of some kind. I think it's attached to Earth. It's probably everywhere. And I think it's part of a much larger pattern that we can neither see nor understand. And yeah, it's in the realm of physics, quantum mechanics, and it's probably deeply buried and not uncovered yet. We still don't know much about quantum mechanics, and I think that's the realm it's going to. Andrew Collins, in the book that's coming out in May, Andrew goes into that in depth. I don't go into depth into that, but Andrew does, and you need to get him on when this comes out and talk about that, because I don't know as much about physics as Andrew does, and I don't pretend to. I know a lot about psychology, a lot about Indian mounds, as you well know, but aside from that, I don't have all the physics down, and I'm not sure that all the speculation's correct anyway. I think there's a lot in physics we don't know yet. But anyway, what Andrew and I have done is try to explain all this in a simplistic way so that anybody could understand and really make sense out of it. But that's synchronicity, and I think that's a great place to stop. It's a meaningful coincidence. And that I think what will happen with a lot of people that listen to this, however many do, look for meaningful coincidences in your life. Go do it now. Start looking now, and chances are they'll start appearing. If you look, you can notice them.
Amen. If just while we got just a little bit of time, I found a quote in John Keel's The Eighth Tower. He wrote, allied with the synchronous events is what I call the reflective factor. Somehow the phenomena reflects back material that supports whatever beliefs or theories motivate the investigators.
Yeah,
And
that's that. Let me jump in there. That's what Jung meant when he talked about projection, that people are projecting the meaning onto it. So the meaning that they're projecting is very personal to them. It has to do with their needs, their beliefs, their ideas, whatever biases they have. So the projection is always biased and comes out of that individual. But go ahead.
oh, that was essentially it. There was well, he did go on. I'm sorry. Once, just for the hell of it, I doodled with the notion that some of our humans might be aquatic. They were often seen wearing turtleneck sweaters, and I wondered, not very seriously, if their turtlenecks might be concealing something like gills. Naturally, I didn't discuss this preposterous theory with anyone, and this was utterly amazing to me. The week I played with this idea, I suddenly received a letter from a young man in Florida who described a remarkable encounter. He had been hitchhiking and was picked up by a very strange man who had gill-like flaps on his throat. I've never received any other reports of this type. It is one of a kind.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Now you were down in Florida then, weren't you? And you were acting like a man in black. You think you believe that some people thought you were a man in black. I know that.
Oh,
That
well,
you,
actually, yeah, somebody thought I
yeah.
found out later, thought I was an alien, maybe.
So is yeah, that Mike Kilby talking about you, that you were down there, that you were the one in the gills with the
No,
and
no,
turtle?
it wasn't me, but
Yeah. All
there were
right.
other candidates that were down in Florida. That
All
might
right.
have been. Well, Greg, as always,
All right. These
pleasure.
15
And
minutes, I love them. We can get one idea in there and kind of explain it and let it go. Until next time, I'm good, Brent. We'll see you again.
all right, same here, Greg. Thank you.
Yep.